Folks, our first on-demand workshop, How to Become a Coffee Consultant, is now available for you to learn at your own pace for just €50, and it comes with a certificate upon completion. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for more details. Support this podcast by supporting our sponsors. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and today this is episode 2 of our 5-part series with Hassan, and we are talking about the way that Gen Z are kind of approaching the future of the specialty coffee industry. And in today's episode, we're going to look at how Hassan, as a representative of the entire Gen Z population in coffee, which, I'm not sure that it was fair to do that to you, but we've done it nonetheless. But how do you see the industry evolving over the next decade? When you're 19 at the moment, in 10 years from now, you'll be 29. Being someone who's doing a business degree and marketing, I suspect that you want to get into business. Is that correct?
Definitely.
Okay.
The business of coffee, I would say.
Again? Say again?
The business of coffee.
The business of coffee, right? So how do you, and that can mean a lot of different things, right? So how do you particularly see the industry evolving over the next decade?
I feel like we're entering, as we were saying, some of the best years of the industry. As you said, the foundations are all laid down. Now we're building the house and the trees on top of that foundation and using technological innovations and new upcoming methods to improve that. And a key focus, I would say, of the future now is the sustainability behind things, especially from a climate change perspective, and making sure every step throughout the chain is done correctly. And when I say correctly, what does that mean? I would say a key focus in quality and transparency is a big one, especially making sure things are being taken care of, taking away the toxic side of things. Because I feel like as a generation, we tend to speak up a lot more about these topics. We definitely want to see change, and we are very susceptible to change ourselves, considering we've gone through this past decade of just new technologies. Always, what's the new thing? What's the new trend? What's the big thing? So I feel like that's kind of put a mindset within us to always keep us looking for something new and innovating and pushing forward. And where is the next big thing? Keeping relevant on top of things. And I feel like seeing that being deployed over the next generations, from coffee farmers to, people opening coffee shops and roasteries, and how that's going to maybe change completely. It's going to be really interesting. A very, very interesting one for sure.
Do you think that Gen Z, as people working inside the industry, not as consumers, so as the workforce, and we're going to talk about tech in the next episode, but do you think that as Gen Z are in the kind of the base of the workforce at the moment, how much of a weight are you putting on your decisions of where to work based on their sustainability practices?
I would say it's not only sustainability when it comes to that case. Sustainability is definitely a key one. But then the work culture and, the day and how things work, how are things looking within this coffee shop? What's the community like? What kind of customers am I dealing with on a daily basis? Is really a big one, because that's what kind of sets your environment, your workspace. Where am I working? Am I going into work dreading it, or am I going into work excited? Because I sure would love to be excited, excitement and being able to bring that good energy into the space and push it forward for not only the customers, but also for your coworkers, making it fun, playful, interesting. So I feel like that's a really, really big one. And we're starting to see a lot of interesting things happen with baristas, because I feel like we're a generation that have had a lot of options. And I feel like to choose to be a barista is a very big thing, because it's very demanding, both physically, mentally, from many different aspects.
When you say it's a very big thing, what do you mean specifically by that?
The demand you need for it. So not only, I would say, you need to have maybe an openness to how you do things, like an open mind of who you're going to meet today, what kind of coffee drink are you making, Because I get, for example, at the coffee shop, very interesting drinks, and I always ask why. Why do you like to take your coffee this way?
Oh,
Why
okay.
do you do this sort of thing? And I feel like something I'm slowly learning is there's a story with every cup and why people like certain things, and they're always interlocked with maybe a story or an experience they've had. And I feel like being able to encapsulate that and maybe bring that back to the customer with the value and the smile and the experience truly makes them remember it, because people remember how you made them feel. Maybe not necessarily what you said sometimes, because over time many things happen. But if you made them feel in a comfortable, welcoming manner, they're going to come
Hmm.
back for sure.
And do you think that a cafe is going to, and we will talk about this in future episodes, but when we're looking at the way that the industry is going to evolve over the next decade and the industry itself, do you think that cafes and their employees, or cafe owners and their employees, do you think that those relationships are going to change over the next decade? And how do you think they're going to change?
I feel like the integration of technology is slowly up and coming within our industry in comparison to maybe the other side of coffee, the commercial side with
Right.
Nespresso, so forth. They've already entered that sort of space where all they have to do maybe is click a button, select a coffee. Anyone
Right.
can do it.
Right.
Now we're starting to see that within our industry with the innovations that are coming up. For example, the way that milk is being steamed, it's being able to maybe
Right.
perfect it more than I can do 100% of the time.
Right.
And in this new influx of robot baristas and this sort of thing, they're all going to play very interesting parts. And I feel like the job of the barista is slowly shifting towards the attitude you have towards it and how nice you're being, and the customer engagement you're giving, while making things a bit easier for you on that side. So maybe less work on the coffee physically, but then more work from engaging with the customer, and mixing those two elements is going to be a very key part, I think, on top of keeping relevant with the trends and what you're offering and that sort of thing. So I feel like you have to really listen. Is a really big one. Listen to us, because I feel like we need to be given sometimes more of a voice, or maybe we're afraid to speak up because so and so has been in the industry for X amount of time, so he knows way more. And I'm only a young kid. What does he know? And this and that. So I feel like the companies that are listening and the people who are truly, truly listening and able to take an open mind to perspectives are truly the ones that are succeeding and learning from this.
Yeah. Matt Perger calls it the coffee concierge.
Ooh.
That you will no longer need baristas, they will become coffee concierges. And I think it's pretty accurate. I think that's the way to look at it. Now, you as a business owner, somebody who's looking to be in business, you've been pitching to Nespresso, you've been written up a number of times. Congratulations. I'm very proud of you. Tell me what you think business is going to look like in the industry in a decade.
It's a very big question. Where do I start?
Do you think that the barrier to entry into business is going to be the same? Like right now, the barrier to entry is capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to be the barrier to entry in 10 years from now?
Yes and no.
Tell me.
Because capital, I think you're going to start needing potentially more capital going forwards, because you're going to be investing in more technological pieces of equipment to push you forwards with your quality and precision and quality control, so on and so forth. But then at the same time, it's not going to be the case of, I have a lot of capital, let me try and open a coffee shop or a roastery, let's see where it goes. Maybe I don't know too much about this topic, I haven't studied too much, I haven't explored. I feel like we're going to start to see maybe less and less of that, and more passion coming in towards this industry from my generation, because I would say in comparison to previous generations, we have a lot of options. Like, we've been luckily given a lot of options, and we're only going to do things we truly see the value in. And I believe that, and I've seen it most definitely. If I don't see the value in something, or I'm not passionate about this thing, or I'm not loving it, I'm waking up hating it in a sense, I'm not going to do it, simply.
Tell me more about that. Like, there are a lot of people who are hiring in your generation and are nodding their heads right now and saying, that's exactly what we've experienced. So
yes, it's kind of overlooked as lazy, I would say, typically, the lazy barista or the lazy worker. But I feel like a way we can, reactivate the flame or the fire within this person is
Mm-hmm.
to see what motivates them. Because we are motivated by not only financial incentives, but as I was mentioning, maybe a good work environment. What am I working? What am I pushing? Maybe having a chance to go on a little training, maybe, or you're sending me to this cafe to see what it's like, to give me a different perspective. Maybe talking to, maybe, for example, I have coffee friends that come over. Maybe I'm introducing them to my staff, and maybe they're able to ask them questions and
Mm-hmm.
explore, making them feel truly welcomed and they're a big part of this. Because then in return, they'll take care of your business and they'll provide value
Mm.
to you and for them as well. And there'll be a very, very big thing pushing you forwards more and more.
Okay. This is very enlightening. When my consulting clients say to me, I'm just so frustrated because I don't know how to motivate my team. And, most people who own cafes are either older millennials or Gen Xers like me.
Mm.
And we have
Mhm.
a very different approach to work ethic. And it's the frustration is real from those people who I get messages like, Lee, why do I have to high five my staff when they pull an espresso shot? I'm like, well, this is just what you have to get used to. But what you're telling me is create a culture that I want to exist in, and I won't need a high five.
Create a space where I feel welcome and valued, quite literally. Like, listen to me. If you're listening to me, I promise you, I deliver very, very well. Like talking from the barista point of view to maybe a manager or an owner. Because I feel like we don't get listened to sometimes. And it truly makes us not want to give back a lot. I don't know. It's an
So what do
interesting
you
one.
mean by listen to? What do you want to be heard on?
Let's say I'm talking to a customer, and this customer's come from, let's say, Saudi Arabia. And
Mm-hmm.
over there, they've had this new drink that they've invented, and maybe he's giving me a sample to try. I'm like, this is incredible. Maybe we'd love to see this. And then I go to pitch it to you, and then you're instantly like, nah, I'm not gonna work. Not on the market. I don't think it will succeed. Then that kind of shuts me down instantly. And I'm like, oh, why did I even say that? I feel so
Okay.
stupid. So I feel like if we're able to value the thoughts and kind of what we say and maybe open up space for it, it's all about creating space and the right energy. We're able to do that and create a collaborative space where it's not just you're the final decision maker, it's also a bit with your team. So maybe more of a democratic kind of standpoint, being a bit more of a transformational leader. It's something we truly love to see, I think.
I
And even maybe having managers as people, like a manager who's managing me that's closer to my age, for example, I feel like that truly creates more of an interesting one because someone maybe who's a bit, let's say, a year or two older than me, we're still very similar in age. We've still, lived through very similar experiences. So I feel like I can look forward to him, maybe interacting with him. Even though he's my manager, we can still have a good business relationship.
Okay. I hear you. And I know that there are a lot of people out there who own businesses right now who heard what you just said and went, so what you're asking me to do is give you decision-making power into my business. And they are thinking that would probably be a very hard decision to make because, I mean, businesses are razor thin margins. And if you make a mistake and you haven't demonstrated that you understand profitability or don't understand profitability or your reasoning or whatever, I think it's a really fascinating idea to explore, this idea of letting your staff help you make decisions. And what I think is even more fascinating is the expectation that comes from Gen Z, because we can't get away from it. It exists everywhere. The expectation that they should be listened to, that you guys should be listened to is, and you expect it. And I think it's going to be a fascinating thing that plays out over the next decade to see if people choose to continue to hire people who have this expectation, or they decide to transition to having more automation so that this doesn't become something that dominates their industry, which sets us up perfectly for the next episode where we're going to talk about tech. So let's do that, folks. Join us in the next episode. We are going to talk about how tech is going to shape the future of the industry and most likely continue this conversation that we're having in this episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in, friends. There are 2 ways you can support this podcast. Firstly, become a paid member of our YouTube channel. Secondly, you can join our Patreon for as little as $3 a month. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video before you leave, and check the show notes for more information. Now, this is what you should check out next.